Have you ever struggled with something quietly, even when help was right there? Maybe you were overwhelmed with work, but you told everyone, "I've got it." Maybe you were going through something emotionally difficult, but when someone asked if you were okay, you smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And maybe later, when you were finally alone, you wondered something strange. Why is it so hard for me to ask for help? On the surface, society often labels this behavior as stubbornness or pride. People might say things like, "Just ask for help," as if it's a simple switch you can flip. But psychology tells a much deeper story. Because the people who rarely ask for help aren't always trying to prove something. Many times their behavior comes from a unique combination of life experiences, personality traits, and the way their brain has learned to navigate the world. Let me paint a picture. Imagine two people facing the same challenge. Maybe it's a stressful project, a difficult decision, or a personal crisis. One person immediately reaches out. They call a friend, ask for advice, talk through their feelings. For them, sharing the load feels natural. The other person pauses, thinks, and then decides to handle it alone. They research, they analyze, they stay up late trying to solve the problem themselves. Not because help isn't available, but because something inside them says, you should figure this out on your own. Now here's the interesting part. For many people who rarely ask for help, this habit didn't start as a conscious choice. It developed slowly over time. Often it begins early in life. Imagine a child growing up in an environment where independence is valued very strongly. Maybe they were praised for being the strong one. Maybe they learned that adults were busy, stressed, or unavailable. Maybe they experienced moments when asking for help didn't actually lead to support. Children are incredibly observant. Even without anyone explicitly saying it, they start forming quiet conclusions about how the world works. If help isn't consistently available, the brain adapts. It starts building a simple rule: handle things yourself. Over time, that rule becomes part of the person's identity. And by adulthood, it doesn't feel like a rule anymore. It feels like personality. But there's another psychological layer here that many people overlook. People who rarely ask for help are often deeply capable individuals. They're problem solvers, thinkers, planners. When something goes wrong, their brain immediately starts scanning for solutions. Like a computer running multiple tabs at once, they explore different possibilities until something starts to make sense. In fact, research in personality psychology suggests that individuals high in traits like conscientiousness and self-reliance are naturally inclined to handle challenges independently. Their brain gets a kind of quiet satisfaction from figuring things out. It's like solving a puzzle. But puzzles can also become heavy when you carry them alone for too long. Here's where things get complicated. For some people, asking for help doesn't just feel unnecessary, it feels uncomfortable, almost like exposing a vulnerability. You might recognize this feeling if you've ever hesitated before sending a message that says something like, "Hey, could you help me with something?" Your mind might start whispering questions. What if they think I'm incapable? What if I'm bothering them? What if I should be able to handle this myself? This internal dialogue often comes from a psychological concept called self-reliance identity. Over time, people who handle many situations alone start seeing themselves as the independent one, the reliable one, the one who doesn't need assistance. And once that identity forms, asking for help can feel like breaking a personal rule. It's almost as if your brain says, "This isn't who we are." But the irony is fascinating. The same strength that makes someone capable of solving problems alone can sometimes prevent them from experiencing the benefits of shared problem solving. Because humans, by nature, are collaborative creatures. For thousands of years, survival depended on cooperation, hunting, gathering, building communities. People relied on each other. Our brains evolved not only to think individually,
but to think together. That's why something interesting happens when you finally share a problem with someone else. The moment you explain your situation out loud, new perspectives appear. Your friend might see a solution you hadn't considered. A colleague might offer a shortcut. Someone might simply listen and remind you that you're not alone. Sometimes the solution itself isn't the most valuable part. The feeling of support is. But for people who rarely ask for help, reaching that moment can feel like crossing an invisible bridge. And there's another psychological factor hiding in the background here: trust. If someone has experienced disappointment, criticism, or rejection in the past when they tried to open up, their brain learns a protective lesson. It says, safer to handle things alone. The mind becomes cautious about relying on others, not out of negativity, out of self-protection. Your brain is trying to prevent future emotional pain, so it builds walls made of independence. From the outside, those walls look like strength. From the inside, they sometimes feel like isolation. But here's something important to understand. The people who rarely ask for help are often the same people who help others without hesitation. Have you noticed that? They're the friend who listens when someone else is struggling, the coworker who stays late to support a team member, the person who offers advice, solutions, encouragement. Helping others feels natural to them, but receiving help feels different. Psychologists sometimes refer to this pattern as asymmetric support behavior. It means someone is comfortable giving support, but uncomfortable receiving it. And this happens because giving help reinforces feelings of competence and value. Receiving help, on the other hand, can trigger feelings of dependency. But dependency and connection are not the same thing. One suggests weakness, the other reflects human nature. Think about it this way. Imagine carrying a heavy box up a staircase. You could do it alone. It might take longer, and your arms might get tired, but you could eventually reach the top. Now imagine someone walking by and offering to carry one side of the box. Suddenly, the task becomes lighter. Not because you were incapable, but because sharing effort makes the journey easier. Life works the same way. And interestingly, research in social psychology suggests that people who ask for help are often perceived as more likable and trustworthy, not less competent. When you ask someone for help, you're actually giving them an opportunity to feel valued. You're saying, "I trust you." That small moment of trust can strengthen relationships. It creates connection. But here's the key idea. Learning to ask for help doesn't mean abandoning independence. It simply means expanding it. True independence isn't about doing everything alone. It's about having the wisdom to know when collaboration makes sense. Some of the most successful people in history understood this deeply. Scientists rely on research teams. Artists collaborate with editors and producers. Entrepreneurs build networks of advisors. Behind many great achievements, there's often a quiet group of people supporting the journey. So, if you're someone who rarely asks for help, it doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It probably means you've developed strong self-reliance. That's not a flaw, it's a powerful ability. But even strongest abilities work best when balanced. Think of independence like a muscle. It's useful to have it strong. But if you never let anyone assist you, that muscle ends up carrying every weight by itself. Eventually, it gets tired. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't lifting the weight alone. It's allowing someone to grab the other side. Not because you can't carry it, but because you don't have to. So, the next time you find yourself facing something difficult and that familiar thought appears, "I should handle this myself," pause for a moment. Ask yourself a different question. What would happen if I didn't carry this alone? Maybe nothing dramatic changes. Maybe someone offers a small piece of advice. Maybe they simply listen. But that small shift can make a big difference. Because life was never meant to be solved entirely in silence. And I'm curious about something. Are you someone who usually handles problems alone, or do you find it easy to ask for help when you need it? Let me know in the comments. Conversations like these remind us that every mind works a little differently, and understanding those differences is often the first step towards understanding ourselves. And if you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors like this, you might want to stick around. Because the more we understand the patterns inside our minds, the more clearly we start to see the world and ourselves.